Welcome back, everybody. We are continuing our part two with the man, Mr. Bryan Scott. Bryan, welcome again to the program. And now it's time to talk about all your new endeavors, man. Lots of great things happening for you. We talked about Union Underground, but yet, as we're discussing off camera, it seems like musicians in the new millennium are multifaceted. They're doing lots of things. You too are doing other things besides the Union Underground. One of the bands that I've heard you kind of talk about on social media the most is a band called Into the Fire. Talk a little bit about this band. What is different for you with Into the Fire than maybe what you've done in the past?
Tim King, Adam Zadell from Soil, and Will Hunt, who's a drummer for Evanescence. And he just joined the project recently. It's more of a just kind of straight up rock and roll thing. And these guys came up with some killer riffs. So
it's more of a collaborative effort than more just a Bryan Scott thing.
It's like, man, I can kind of get these songs done in a night once I start working on them. And it's quick and easy. And like, if it's something I feel will work, I just, I hear it right away. So we've all connected kind of musically. And it's been really fun, man. I'm really anxious to do some shows with this project because it's super fun for me.
Did you know these guys? Obviously, I mean, did you meet these guys previously when you were on the road with the Union Underground, or how do you know Will and all these guys?
They did a big run with Union Underground for a few months, and they were opening some shows with us, and so we just became friends, and just kind of touched base with them over the years, and we've been talking about this project for a few years, and so it's always one of those things like, oh, send me some songs, and we won't talk for another 6 months. And like, okay, send me another song. And like, oh, that one's cool. I'll work on it whenever. And like, we'll talk to him 6 months later. And so it kind of became this never-ending, Chinese democracy, we were calling it as a joke. We finally kind of have an EP thing finished, and I'm really excited about it, man. It's really cool stuff.
I'm sure that the list of musicians who would want to collaborate with you or work with you is kind of long. Why did you choose these guys? I mean, is it more for you important that you get along with them, that you connect with them personally, or is it more the musical side, or a happy medium of both?
I've always liked those guys, and the first couple of songs they sent over, I was like, man, I feel this right away, and we got the songs done quickly, and it's just been an easy project that just felt good.
You said earlier today, Rob, I spread myself thin. And some musicians I know, they work better under those types of circumstances. Is that you?
I think so. I think whenever there's whenever you're in the kind of the pressure cooker, it puts you under, it kind of backs you into a wall, and sometimes I work better that way, because I can definitely tend to overthink everything and just spend a million hours doing stuff that should have been released, a year prior. It's nice to have kind of a project where everyone kind of has their own main gigs, but this thing became something that we all became very passionate about.
Right.
Because once we started putting the first couple of songs together, we realized, like, man, there's something really cool here. So it was something that became more of a main focus this year for all of us, and I'm excited about the results.
Back in January, fans who keep up with you on social media were privy to kind of hear a couple of snippets from some new songs, Spit It Out and From the Medicine, but you haven't released the full tracks yet, just giving us like a little taste. It's just kind of like the Bryan Scott repertoire, it's not ready till it's ready. I heard them, I've been hearing them for the last few weeks, and sound like really good, solid tracks, man. I mean, are you producing these tracks? I mean, are you handling all the production on this music for the band?
Yeah, I mean, they're sending over, basic tracks, basic kind of drum and guitar and bass tracks, and then I'll just kind of cut them up to fit the, however I kind of want to make them into a song arrangement, and then I'll, obviously write the vocals and then mix it all. And so it's been a really smooth process, man. And you know, those guys are really excited about it. I'm excited about it, and it's kind of something way outside of their box, and it's outside of my box too. It's like just a straight up rock and roll thing. Just for me personally as a writer, can be, you know, a bit emotionally taxing. You know what I mean? Because everything I write means something to me always. Like, I don't just write about bullshit. Right. So, you know, but this project has been fun for me because I can kind of get outside of that caring so much about every single moment of the song and just be a little more kind of back to what I thought, you know, inspired me as a kid when I was first listening to records, and, you know, not be so fucking serious all the time. And so this is what's been really cool about that project for me, is that it's just, you know, it's fun, man, and it's just badass rock and roll. You know.
So let's talk about the name Into the Fire. What does that mean for you?
It is an old Dawkins song that I used to like, you know, back in the high school days, of course. And actually, that was a song title that I had for, you know, a Cult to Follow song, and which I would just always love the title. And, you know, titles share, you know, there's probably 300 songs called Into the Fire. Sure. But I thought it was a cool name for the project because it's kind of, it just means all of us taking a leap. You know, even at this point in our lives when we have a lot of different projects and, you know, different amounts of success.
You shot a video for one of the tracks in Chicago.
Yeah.
How'd that go?
The director, who's a guy named Eric Richter out of Chicago, I really wanted a kind of, you know, I was telling you before, like a mid-90s, you know, 1995, 96. Like, I really liked old STP videos and like old 9 Inch Nail videos. And just that era of video making was really cool to me. So this project, I really wanted to focus on that. And so this Eric Richter, who directed it, just nailed it, man. Like, it looks really cool. It's exactly visually what I was thinking.
Like, is it as a band performance, or is it more like a dramatic?
There's both. You know, there's conceptual pieces and a bit of a storyline that, you know, is just kind of really just chaos, and, you know, you make your own story out of it. And it's cut in with performance stuff, of course.
Cool. And just you know, for people who are thinking, I mean, people know you're a guitar player. Obviously, you can be a songwriter if you're more than a guitar player. Are you actually freestyle fronting, you know, Into the Fire, or are you playing guitar, you know, live, or, you know, obviously you may be playing guitar in the studio, but are you going to be doing that, you know, fronting the band?
No, I mean, I'm not doing guitar live, probably. Maybe on a couple of songs that would require it, but, you know, studio-wise, I did do some just, you know, ear candy and embellishment tracks. But Adam laid down all the main guitar parts, all the solos, and, you know, I just kind of peppered it with some BS.
When the band finally completes recording all these tracks, again, we talked about, you know, the significance of bands doing EPs these days. You're planning to release an EP. Can you talk a little bit about when you plan to release an EP for Into the Fire?
It'll definitely be mid to late summer at the latest with this EP, you know. So the songs are done, and we're just trying to find a home for it, which, you know what I mean by that internally. Sure, so, you know, sure. I would say late summer as far as an actual release.
Do the other guys in the band reside in Chicago? Is that why you did the video in Chicago?
Yeah, well, not only because they were there, but the director lived there.
Oh, okay.
He's from there, and his whole crew's from there, and we decided to go with him after seeing his reel and going through the whole treatment process. And it was just a good fit, and it was just coincidentally very convenient.
If the EP comes out, you know, and it's accepted, you know, with open arms, obviously, you know, as we talked about earlier tonight, around the same time, you're going to have some Union Underground stuff coming out. It seems like you're going to be quite the busy man.
Most important aspects of focus is the songs, you know. Whatever happens schedule-wise and all that stuff after that is kind of secondary to me. I mean, the songs have to be what I consider flawless, you know. Who knows what everyone else thinks about it, you know. Everyone has their own interpretation of that word. But
I'm sure your standard of flawless is way higher than most.
But I mean, you know, I have to feel that it's right to release, obviously, and especially after so much time with the Union Underground project, like that thing. I don't want it to feel like Union Underground 2.0 or some nonsense. Like, I want it to be exactly like a continuation of that first record.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's not like that project had, you know, a 10-year span of stuff where it developed over the years, and, you know, all of a sudden it sounded different after 10 years and whatever. People are fans of that sound, of that record, and I want to commit to that for them, because I don't want it to be some development of that project or what you would think it would sound like in 2016. I want it to sound exactly like what it would sound like the year after that record was out. So it's going to be exactly that, you know. And I want it to be that. That's the whole point of it. I'm super excited about those because, you know, put myself in that headspace has just been inspiring. I like it.
Thanks for saying all that. I mean, I think that puts it in great perspective, because when you're a multifaceted musician, I think it's very easy for people to rehash what they do, and I'm glad you're cognizant of that and not doing that, because obviously people have become enamored with Bryan Scott because of Union Underground. So also, I mean, people know that, at least here in San Antonio, that you had have a band called Cult to Follow as well. And we know here in San Antonio, you know, the band Cult to Follow is primarily made up of musicians from here in San Antonio. We had Jason Shakes West here on the program a few months back, and we talked a little bit about Cult to Follow. So let's talk a little bit about that endeavor. Obviously, you know, one of the things that I have to mention is that you were pretty adamant online about saying, hey, even though I'm bringing back Union Underground, even though I'm doing Into the Fire, Cult to Follow is still a band that I'm very interested in continuing in this day and age. So talk a little bit about why you wanted to continue Cult to Follow, because it kind of seemed that Cult to Follow, after, you know, some music came out and some shows were produced, that it kind of fell off the radar. So talk a little bit about why you want to continue Cult to Follow.
I took some time off and from doing shows with that band and like recording songs with that band. And by band, I mean, you know, those guys are in my live band. In the studio, I'm kind of doing a Lenny Kravitz style record where I'm just, you know what I mean? I appreciate those guys for being so patient, and believe me, like, you know, I'm sure they get very frustrated with my ass when, you know, it's like, man, we got to go off and, like, you know, do a million projects while this guy's working on stuff in the studio. So, you know, and I totally understand that, and that's why they do a million other things, and I totally support all that, and it's awesome, you know. They got to stay active, you know. But, you know, I took some time off from that to just, like, produce other bands and kind of just be on the other side of the camera, so to speak. But I get kind of bored of that too, you know. And so I just wanted to bring everything, all the projects back this year, you know. And I've been writing like crazy, and I've just been really inspired. So, and, you know, like I said, just whenever I'm inspired is when I'll do it. There's no rhyme or reason. It's just has to feel right. So, Cult to Follow is the same way. I mean, I feel the same way about that project. And to be honest, man, like, that's kind of my baby as a songwriter. I commit the most heart to that project. You know, Union Underground's kind of about just madness and visions and just visual stuff and just chaos, and lyrics are kind of, you know, just, you know, it's madness, you know. That the Cult to Follow stuff's very dear to my heart, and all those songs are, every single one of them means something to me. They all my songs mean something to me, and, you know, but these are more personal. The Into the Fire stuff is more just fun rock and roll stuff, and, you know, we can bash it out and we can just talk about ridiculous shit, and, you know, I like that rock and roll side of it, and it's a little less taxing on me emotionally.
Is that the Motley Crue side of you coming out?
It's that, dude. Into the Fire stuff is the Motley Crue side for sure. You know, yeah, for sure. Even though it's the Motley Crue kid, but the songwriting's more of a '90s thing. But it's the Motley Crue kids. What is how I approach that Into the Fire thing for sure. And Tim King will love that because that's his favorite band on the planet. So yeah, he'll love it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all that. I know it's not easy for you to do that, but that's endearing to us fans because now we can kind of grab some perspective of where you're coming from with each one of these projects. Do you have new Cult to Follow music? I mean, or are you kind of still focusing? Is Cult to Follow still like late 2016 or 2017? Now that we know that Cult to Follow is not dead, but doesn't necessarily mean it's in the immediate future. It still could be like later in the year.
There's kind of a what I call just a retro pack that I'm going to do of just older Cult to Follow songs called The Inception. Just because it was the original batch of songs that kind of I used to launch the whole idea of that project. And I do want to release those. It will be, this year for sure. And probably in the summer. I mean, all the songs are recorded and everything. But, it's just finding the time to commit to mixing all of that stuff and release it in a fashion that I'm kind of happy with. But there are also a couple of new tracks as well. So there'll be about an official release will be 6 older songs and then 2 newer ones that will be kind of, an EP, almost LP. Everyone that's a fan of kind of the older stuff and stuff they haven't heard will be, I think they'll be pleased by it. There's finally, there's just so much action online with that stuff, even just from like 2 or 3 songs, man, that I really have to commit to that. I just get asked about it so much. When are you finally going to release the older song? Because there's so many older songs that have kind of been sitting around that, like, they're kind of in demo form, but I've remastered them a bit or remixed them some, and but it's like, well, do I want to release those or do I just want to release all new stuff? And it's a constant conundrum.
Speaking purely as a fan, and knowing, fans knowing you're a producer, in my mind, I've always thought BRYAN has all kinds of mixes of the same song that I'd love to hear, and I hear, mixes from different artists, and sometimes I hear a new mix that I like even better than the one they released on the record. Yeah. So, man, my vote is to release the shit, BRYAN. Let it out. Yeah.
Well, I will try and commit to that this year. I promise.
Cool, man. Yeah. Oh, God, BRYAN. I can't tell you enough what a pleasure it's been to have you here tonight at the home studio and in front of my friends and the crew. And yeah, oh, man, having a great time, and listening about your feelings on music. I know you don't do things like this very often. So, again, thank you so much. Any last words? I don't want to keep you any much longer. Any last words for anyone out there in the world watching this interview?
Just thank you for the continued support, obviously, and there's a mountain of new music coming. The release dates yet to be scheduled.
But this year?
This year for sure.
Okay, cool.
And especially Union Underground fans, it will be this year for sure.
Woo,
yeah.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Yep. Thank you so much. Remember, everyone out there, new music coming from the Union Underground, Into the Fire, Cult to Follow. You saw the man, Mr. BRYAN Scott, only right here on Rob's MetalWorks.